Okay, it seems to be live now. Hopefully it actually is. Hey everyone. Been a while. It felt like 2 months or more. Um, but yeah, Destination X, TNA. Woo! I figured, well, I actually like this, so why not talk about it? And luckily, I seem to get that working right, so, you know, um, figured it's about as good as time as any, so I'm going to do my thoughts on Destination X. Long story short, just to get this out of the way now, as far as I'm concerned, there was not a single bad match on this show. I'm just going to look back and try and find the specific order of stuff that happened. Um, just because, it's been a few days, so I can't entirely remember the order. Um, okay, let's see. Okay, first off was the Wolves, or the American Wolves, or whatever you want to call them, versus Matt and Jeff Hardy, and I honestly wasn't expecting much in a way. Like, it was a cool idea, and they did kind of have it as like they were billing it as like a dream match. This exceeded my expectations, I have to say. Like, holy crap. Like, it's good to see that Matt hasn't really lost much of a step, or at least has regained a step, I guess. I don't know, because, he went through some pretty rough shit. Like, one or two insane back injuries. And to come back from that and pull off a match like this with the Wolves, that's great. Like, yes, I know he's been in Ring of Honor, like, for a while since leaving TNA the first time. But honestly, if he's back and he's in TNA properly and this isn't just a one off, I'd be fine with that. I mean, apparently it's not, because at their next NYC tapings, they are doing um, Team 3D versus the Wolves versus the Hardys. And I'm looking forward to that, especially after this match. Like, holy crap, this really could have gone either way. And really, it helps solidify the fact that the Hardys are still a good tag team. Like, if anything, one of my favorite moments was simply. Sorry about that. I'm not sick or anything, I just have a cough for some reason. I didn't have one until I started, so. Oh well. Anyway, uh, you know how the Hardys do that poetry in motion thing, right? Well, basically, they did that, and they did do it successfully at least once. But basically, Matt went down on all fours near a set of ropes, and Jeff jumped, sorry, jumped off his back over the friggin' ropes in a sort of poetry of in motion style thing that he would do anyway. But of course, over the ropes and on top, and landed on top of the wolves, and that was just amazing to see. Like, I was like, wait, is he seriously gonna do that? Like, I know he's done it before with like a chair and all that. But it was cool seeing him do it like that. I think I called it poetry in flight because poetry in motion, poetry in flight. I think it works. It probably won't stick, but you know. The Wolves retained. As much as I like the Hardys as a tag team, though I do prefer Matt Hardy, I am glad that the Wolves retained. But the thing that I like is that, God, this was only 10 minutes? Wow, that felt like a lot longer than 10 minutes, I gotta tell you. Like, pretty much all of these matches felt like they were much longer but in a good way than they actually were. So yeah, the Wolves. Uh, I honestly I can't even entirely remember the finish, but it took a lot for the Wolves to actually pull out a win, and it was essentially one of those cases where I'm pretty sure Eddie Edwards had to knock Jeff Hardy aside, or like basically throw himself onto Jeff Hardy just so he wouldn't break up the pin. It was that close. Like, Christ, this match was just insane. Like, oh my god. And Matt Hardy can still pull off a moonsault. That's cool to see. Still picture perfect. I mean, he missed because, let's face it, when has Matt Hardy ever successfully hit a moonsault? At least I'm pretty sure he did miss. But, that's kind of his thing. I don't think it's rare that he actually ever hit a moonsault, sort of like Kurt Angle in a way. Yeah, that was a good match. Honestly, I really hope they win the next one as well, the Wolves, because really this is just helping to solidify them as legitimate tag team champions. I don't even mind that they defend it so much, especially since TNA's got less proper pay-per-views. So, it makes sense that they defend the titles so much. Anyway, next match. There are only 5 matches, but I swear to God, none of them were bad. Low Key versus DJ Zima, or DJ Z, Zima Ion, whatever you want to call him, versus Manic / TJ Perkins. And that was the first of 3 three-way matches where the winners of those 3 would go on to a X Division title match this coming Thursday. Well, American time Thursday, Australia time Friday. And my God, this honestly, I would call this. Would I? Yeah, you know what? I'll call this match of the night. That was just yes. I mucked out so much during this match. You don't even know. Like, just the fact that Loki was back at all, and the fact that he's apparently back for real. It's not like, he's just back for this tournament. It seems like he is legitimately back. So, woohoo! Especially since it seemed like he was retiring about a year ago, so that's kind of odd. I guess, as I've said to people, I guess voice acting didn't work out for him or something. But yeah, when I realized that it was these 3 paired up, I was like, oh, if this was a pay-per-view, I would have paid for it in retrospect. Like, just yes. I would pay to watch this again. That's how good this pay-per-view was. But yeah, free per view, I guess. But yeah, I would pay to watch this again. Loki won, and I swear to God, when he pulled out this ghetto stomp out of nowhere, I legit marked out. I was like, ah! Like, I actually sort of squealed, like, because I didn't necessarily see it coming, so it was sort of like when it happened, I was just like, yes! Like, this feels so great because, sorry to go off the match again, but this is the first show, probably all year, that I've actually felt, whether it's invested or not, just felt like I actually give a damn. And this is like the first show that's probably been completely satisfying to me. Like, you don't even know. Like, my God. At least you probably do somewhat now that I've been going on about it for a bit. Yeah, Loki wins with the Key Crusher. Like, for some reason, I thought he was going to use the Ghetto Stomp / Warrior's Way, but no. I think he did, but it didn't get him the win, so he used the Key Crusher instead and just marked out like crazy for me. And even before that, there was like, between these two matches, there was a stare down between Loki and Samoa Joe, and I was just like, yes, please. Please do that eventually. Anyway. The next triple threat was Sonata versus indie wrestler Brian Cage and Crazy Steve. I will say that this was the least good of the triple threats, but it was by no means bad. It would just, it's just a case of it wasn't as good as the other two. Which, again, it's no fault of them. It's just it was a hard act to follow. And then, the next one happened and it was like, oh! So, mainly, I guess in a way, it's like there's probably less memorable things. Like, Brian Cage, I've seen stuff of him from PWG. The guy is fucking amazing. And as the commentators of PWG always say, he is a fucking machine. There's even a bit where he has, I think it was either Sonata on his shoulders. I think it was Sonata, or generally he had one of them on his shoulders and another caught in a fall away slam position, and he just did a Samoan drop fall away slam. I don't even think I'd seen that done before, or if I have, it's been a good while since I have, and it would have just been either Brian Cage himself or another indie guy. So it was like, that was pretty cool. I mean, it was kind of a bit iffy, but when you're trying to do a Samoan drop, but you're not holding the person, it's probably going to end up being a bit iffy. So, fair enough. Sonata wins and had turned heel, which that was honestly really interesting. I really did not see that heel turn coming, surprisingly. I mean, they basically were setting it up to happen, but it did happen. And, it happened the week before, but it was just like, this is something interesting. And now Sonata doesn't even have to talk, because now he's got James Storm to talk for him. So that's really interesting. Then the third triple threat, which it's funny because I almost thought there was a gap match between these, but apparently not. But yeah, we had Samoa Joe versus Homicide versus Tigre Uno. Yes! This was great. Just Samoa Joe and Homicide beating the fuck out of each other, and Tigre Uno in there. It's like, there you go. That was, oh. And the funny thing is I knew it when the Gringo Cutter was coming. I totally saw it because of how he blocked a punch or a lariat or something, threw the arm back and went for it. I was just like, yes! I marked out so hard and I don't even know why. I guess it's just because Homicide hasn't been in TNA for so long. And I haven't really kept up with ROH, even though he is in ROH. Or anywhere else that he seems to have wrestled, because he oddly hasn't done any PWG stuff. So, yeah, and the Suicide Dive, Suicide Senton, or Senton Suicide, or whatever it's actually called. Suicide Atomica Suicide, I forget. There's a specific name for it, but he does a suicide dive, but as he's doing it, instead of just flat out Superman diving sort of thing, he just turns his body midair after he's gone through the ropes and hits him like that. And if he did that, I marked down as well. Oh, yeah, Jerry, there's so much good stuff about this match. It's been a few days, so of course I can't really recall that much, but yeah. Um, Even Samoa Joe hitting the Muscle Buster and winning, it was just like, finally they've got something for Joe to do. Like, honestly, I like this. I like putting Joe back in the X division because if they've got nothing for him in the mid card, which some people argue the X division is the mid card, it is, but it isn't. It's like a mix of mid card and cruiserweight sort of division. But having Joe back in there, at least there's something for him to do, whether he stays there permanently or not. There's more potential for him there, oddly, than there is in the main event scene or the mid card. Like, if they have something for him to do outside of that later on, that's fine. In fact, next year I would kind of like Samoa Joe to have the X Division title and be the one to cash it in for to essentially vacate the title so he gets a shot at the World Heavyweight title. Because that would be kind of cool. And hopefully he'd win if that happens. Because I honestly think he deserves another run. Like, the run that he had, it was alright, but, it'd be interesting considering the opponents that he'd have to face now compared to back then. Him getting a new run. So, yeah, Joe won, and so that pretty much means that we have Loki versus Sonata versus Samoa Joe. Yes! Like, that's going to be really fun. I really hope that lives up to my sort of self-induced hype, or whatever you'd want to call it. Hopefully I haven't set the bar too high, but, I'm really looking forward to that. Honestly, I don't care who wins that. Just the fact that it's those three, I don't care who wins. I'll be rooting for, pretty much whoever wins, I'll be satisfied. So that's fun. So yeah, I won't necessarily be fretting. I mean, I'll kind of want Joe or Loki to win rather than Sonata. But if Sonata wins, that's fine. I mean, he did only just have it, but Aries then had it and then pretty much almost immediately vacated it. So Sonata getting it back wouldn't bother me too much. But at the same time, Loki or Joe having it, yes. So, really looking forward to that. Okay, main event, Lashley versus Aries. Not the match of the night, but for what it's worth, this was a good match. I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was terrible. I don't think it was god-awful. Was it necessarily great? I remember there being some really good spots, so I guess it was definitely good. Would I say great? I'd have to watch it again, but, honestly, from what I could recall, this was pretty sweet. And they really did play up the fact that Aries really did have to sort of hit and move, and just sort of not stay on him for too long because Lashley's Lashley. And honestly, I really love how they've been building Lashley up as champion. I don't think he's won a title match dirty yet. So they're basically just playing up the fact that he doesn't need that because he's fucking Lashley. And even the way this match ends, where it's not a case of Lashley taking a low road, because really it would just make Lashley look weak to try and cheat. It would help Aries out, but at the same time, the way that Aries loses is that he basically costs himself the match, which he did with Jeff Hardy the week before, or 2 weeks before, I forget. With Aries, it was basically he went for that through the middle and bottom rope suicide dive, Lashley moved, smack! Right into the fucking guardrail. And that looks so painful. Because he goes full speed with that fucking dive. So that had to hurt. He would have been bruised after that. There's no way that he could not have been bruised after that. The way he hit that. It almost looked like he hit his chin too. So that would have really fucking hurt. And then Lashley basically recovers, throws him back in the ring, spears the absolute fuck out of him. And though and Lashley wins and retains. But I really like that they did give Austin Aries a fair shot, because let's face it, Lashley is big, but he's not he's not Big Show big, or Tensai big, or even like Brodus Clay big. He's not Lesnar big, really. Lesnar's kind of bigger. So even though there's a size difference, it's not too unbelievable that Aries could beat Lashley. Hell, he managed to get him up for a friggin' brainbuster. So, they did it where he attempted it once and then just got thrown away. But then he finally got him groggy enough and managed to do it. And probably did more damage because it almost looked like... Usually he holds them up there for a bit, but in this case he pretty much had to just pick him up and then almost immediately drop him. Drop down because he just didn't have the strength to hold him up there. At least in that point in the match. And, in a way I kind of would have liked Aries to win, but at the same time I'm totally happy with Lashley retaining. Lashley keeping the title until Bound for Glory? I'd be all for that. It's not all that far away, technically. So if he keeps it until then, that's great. If he doesn't, fair enough. Like, a face winning the Bound for Glory series and challenging him and winning, I'm totally okay with that. If anything, in a way, I'm kind of glad that they didn't have Aries win, for the simple fact that pretty much every time it's been cashed in so far, they've won. So, it's a case of, if you keep doing that, then it's going to be kind of like the Royal Rumble, where after a while they had to have the Royal Rumble winner in WWE lose at WrestleMania, because otherwise it would just be too predictable that, they are guaranteed a win because they won the Royal Rumble. To the point now that Royal Rumble winners are almost a bit of a joke, because it's actually the number of winners that have actually gone on to win at WrestleMania has drastically dropped. But yeah, I'm really glad they did. In a way, I kind of probably would have preferred Sonata, but considering they had this whole heel thing set up in advance, it makes sense. And as I said, if Sonata gets the X Division title back, it won't really bother me much. Even though I would prefer Low-Key or Samoa Joe. But, really looking forward to this week's Impact to see just what the hell's going on, especially with that tease. That fucking tease of... Basically on this show they set up that Bully Ray is going to get Devon, Dreamer, and one more person. From what I can remember, it was supposed to be 4-on-4. So it's essentially going to be Team 3D, Tommy Dreamer, and one other person versus Spud, EC3. I'm pretty sure it was 8-man, so 4 on each side. Actually, I don't think Spud will be in there. I mean, I hope he is, but it seems like it's going to be Snitsky, uh, Rickland Stevens, so Big Zeke, Ezekiel Jackson from WWE, Rhino and EC3. Like, that's my guess as who it's going to be. Or, like, one of those three heavies is going to sit out so they can throw Spud in there as, like, a Spike Dudley. Because that's basically what he is. Let's face it. He's a tinier Spike Dudley. To the point that I honestly kind of would like to see him do the Dudley Dog at least once, or acid drop, whatever you want to call it. At least once, because that'd be so funny. And just kind of cool to see him do that, just because, he's in a feud with Team 3D now. So, speaking of, I actually kind of think Brother Runt / Spike Dudley is probably going to be the fourth man. But considering it's an 8-man hardcore match, it would really only make sense if Spud's in it. I don't know any of the other matches that are announced yet, if there have been any, but that's pretty much the only one we do know from what I can tell, and possibly a woman's I think they're having a Knockouts title match. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to check, but either way, Destination X, worth it. It was totally worth a watch. If for whatever reason you're a TNA fan but you didn't check it out, for the love of God, check it out. I don't care how, just do it. If you're not a TNA fan, I don't fucking care. Check it out anyway. Seriously. As far as I'm concerned, you will not regret it. Or at least I hope that you won't regret it. Because, like, it's... As I said earlier, this is just a pay-per-view that, made the mistake again. It's not technically a pay-per-view, or it's like, it's a free pay-per-view. Though I guess in this case it was taped and free on Spike TV rather than live and free on Spike TV. Which is kind of bugged me a bit that it wasn't live, but oh well. I pretty much take it as they couldn't do it live because A, they didn't have a Thursday to do it on, and really they would have probably just not been able to book that date or something like that. But anyway, in a way, this show restores my faith in wrestling a bit more. Because this was such a fun show. That's the best word I can use to describe it. Not good or great, it was a fun show to watch. And I really hate that so many people are just dismissing TNA. Like, you're telling me that you're going to keep watching WWE when that seems to constantly disappoint you outside of a few fan wank moments. But you're not going to give TNA a shot at all when, in my opinion, it's actually been quite solid. Would I say it's necessarily better than WWE? I can't say that, because I have not watched WWE properly in a good while. Hell, I haven't watched Raw in like close to 2 years. No kidding. The 14th of this month will mark... At least I'm pretty sure it's the 14th. Will mark 2 years since I have watched Raw. Like, I guess technically if you want to be thingo, it would probably be more like 2 years tomorrow. But, the 14th was the last time that... The 14th of August, 2012, was the last time that I watched Raw. So... technically, even though that will be like a Thursday or something this year, it's still technically the right date, so The 14th. So, they just haven't convinced me to start watching again. And I guess I might as well get this out of the way instead of making it a separate video. All that people, Impact is not cancelled. At least, if it was cancelled, guess what? Destination X wouldn't have aired. That's not how cancellation works, people. Whether whether Spike TV has done that or not, apparently, according to Dixie Carter, they are still negotiating. Which she even had to address on Twitter. Like, that's how I know, because she addressed it on Twitter. It's like, guys, we're still negotiating. It's, the fat lady hasn't sung yet. And really, and she's got no reason to lie, because if she did lie, then that would that would fuck so much shit up. She can't afford to lie, so I'm inclined to believe her. And, if they do lose their TV deal with Spike, it'll run out in October. They're not necessarily getting cancelled so much as their contract will be allowed to run out. So they're given this much advance to find a new network. And if they don't, they don't. But honestly, I hope they do, or I just hope Spike keeps them on, because we need a number 2 to WWE's number 1. Because think about it. If TNA loses their TV deal and just they suddenly decide, oh, we don't have a TV deal now, I guess we'll have to stop and close shop. Do you know what WWE is going to do? Stop caring. Because, yes, they don't consider TNA competition, but they're still there. Think about it. If Global Force Wrestling, Jeff Jarrett's new thing, if that doesn't end up on a TV deal, like ever, I'm not saying it won't, but you never know. If that doesn't get a TV deal, and all we have is WWE on TV, there's no mainstream alternative. So WWE won't care anymore. Whatever little effort they're putting in right now, they'll just stop, because they'll have no reason to. They'll have no reason to care, because they'll have the monopoly. And the funny thing is people are like, oh, TNA must just be having trouble because they're crap. No, it's because they're wrestling. WWE has apparently, initially, and sort of, had problems finding new homes for stuff. Why do you think NXT is now exclusively on the network? In the US, anyway. And Superstars and Main Event and all those are probably all on the network exclusive in the US, because they just couldn't find a home for them. If Impact does get a new TV deal somewhere else, hooray! Hopefully they end up with someone who actually promotes them properly. Because apparently Spike is basically giving TNA the same cold shouldery sort of, ironically cold shoulder sort of treatment, even though they help fund the damn thing, that ECW got when it was still TNN. So, there's that. And it would seem weird to me for Spike to get rid of TNA when it's apparently their highest rated program. It just seems weird. Like, why would you ditch? No matter what the thinger is, why would you get rid of your highest rated show? Does TNA do amazing ratings? No. But for TNA, it's apparently been doing pretty well lately, so. Yeah, but that said, I'm pretty sure that will do, because otherwise I'll just keep rambling on about that kind of crap. So That will do for this time. I might try to get something else done this week, maybe, or like next week, because technically it's Monday here. Um, so this would count as my this week, unless something happens. Um, if not, I'll try to do something next week, whether I can get some people on and talk about something, because the idea was that this was not necessarily going to cover weekly wrestling shows. It was going to just cover whatever in wrestling, in this version of the Ring of Fire. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I can get this back to a weekly thing like I used to have it on Blip. So, I am Thomas Firehart, and I will see you guys next time. Hopefully, that will be very soon.